Brandon Mull is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Fablehaven, Dragonwatch, Beyonders, and Five Kingdoms series. A kinetic thinker, Brandon enjoys bouncy balls, squeezable stress toys, and popping bubble wrap. He lives in Utah in a happy little valley near the mouth of a canyon with his wife, their 11 children, and 3 mischievous cats. Brandon loves meeting his readers and hearing about their experiences with his books. Welcome, Brandon. We did a full episode with you, but we oftentimes really like to bring in authors to give us their Fun Friday book recommendations. So for this one, the question is, what are 5 books that have had a major impact on you in your life?
Okay. So the first one would be The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which we can collectively call the Narnia series. You know, like those books were the books that made me like reading as a kid.
Yeah.
Those were the books that showed me that there were other people out there in the world with wild imaginations making up amazing things. And I desperately wanted that story to come to life. And when it couldn't literally come to life, that's what started me daydreaming about my own fantasy stories.
Very cool. Okay, perfect. Number 2?
So number 2 for me of most influential books would probably be The Lord of the Rings. When I was young, my uncle, Tuck, would talk about this great book that was so far beyond me and that I wasn't ready for yet. But that one day, you know, I could take it up and read it, right?
It would dawn it upon you.
Yeah. And this book was The Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
And partly because he had mystified it so much, I read it when I was way too young to read it, like way too young. Like I knew that there was a wizard, I knew there was a ring. Like I was just kind of living from magical part to magical part because like I couldn't follow everything completely. But by the time I finished those 3 books, I was a much better reader because I'd like powered through some stuff that was over my head, you know? And then when I reread it when I was older, I was like, wow, that was a really great story that I semi-understood the first time, you know?
Yes.
Lord of the Rings, professionally I write books, and Lord of the Rings is the series that showed me that a fantasy could feel important and like a true history, that it could feel consequential and like these grand deeds that were authentic and of major consequence. It just felt, he created a world that to me felt so authentic and where the actions that the characters were doing mattered. And there was this rich history behind it all. And to me, it was just a clinic on that kind of stuff. And he created so many kind of iconic, memorable moments that then got immortalized in movies and stuff.
Yeah. Perfect.
Absolutely. Okay, yeah. Number 3.
My number 3 would have to be Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So Harry Potter was recommended to me when I was in college at BYU. My roommate, like I think what was out at the time was 1, 2, 3. I don't know if you guys remember. Maybe you can't remember. Maybe I'm older, like where you wouldn't remember this. But like Harry Potter kind of hit our country with 1, 2, 3 at 1, 2, 3 on the bestseller list at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like once book 3 came out, for something tipped, and everybody started to notice it.
Yep.
And so he gave me book 1. And I was like, wow, that was surprisingly fun. Like, this is supposed to be for kids? Like that was surprisingly fun. You know, here I am in college and I'm loving it. And so I read the first 3 and loved them all and loved the series. And Harry Potter taught me something that was so vital to my career, which was you could write a story with a young main character, but make it smart and twisty so an adult could enjoy it too.
Yeah.
And that helped define the kind of books I wanted to write. And for me, it was just such a fun reading experience. I mean, if a kid liked fantasy, it would be a major disservice not to share Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Now, I know none of the books I've said are obscure, but they are ones that I thought are some of the best we've got.
Yeah. There's a reason that so many love them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What would number 4 be?
So number 4 would probably be Ender's Game.
Yeah.
For me, Ender's Game found me when I was in high school. My cousin recommended it, and it is the book that I read in the least amount of sittings.
Yeah.
Like an Ender's book, I opened it once, read like a couple chapters, opened it again, read a few more chapters, and then the third time I opened it, I never closed it. I just had to finish. And it just really, I thought that was such a cool book. I liked being in the mind of Ender. I thought it was like being in the mind of a genius. He was so smart, and the story was so compelling. And yeah, like if I was a reluctant reader, high school age kid, I'd say, see if Ender's Game cracks the code for them.
Yeah.
I love that. Number 5.
If I was going to say number 5, I would probably go with Dune.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Dune is a big deal for me because to me that's the Lord of the Rings of sci-fi.
Totally.
Like
Yeah.
for my feeling, like the complexity of the houses and a bunch of planets organized like with dukes and barons and an emperor, and then the tech that they created, the rich world they created, and the desert and the sandworms and the Fremen and the spice, the mentats, and just like it was just really original, cool kind of sci-fi that's like not hard sci-fi with kind of a fantasy
Right.
bent, right? Where
It also has that like Muad'Dib Christ-like
Yeah.
figure that runs through it.
you've got
It's
a
very
chosen
cool.
one.
Yeah.
You've got like a mind-opening, spirit-opening
Yeah.
substances from the worms, and like all sorts of like. There's a spiritual component to the book, and there's a chosen one component to the book, and by far the first Dune was my favorite. But I liked it so much that I read deeper into the series than probably most people go.
Yeah.
You know, where you're just in the mind of sort of a sandworm, and you're like, wow, this is a whole book of that. You know, but like that first Dune book especially. Outstanding, and of course, you know, they just did the movie, which was pretty ridiculously good for such
Right.
for such a hard book to film. It's sort of
I
like
know.
what Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings. That was a hard thing to film. I can't believe he got it on screen, and same thing with Dune.
Yeah.
Again, Dune for epicness, for imagination. It was one of those books that really made my brain tingle.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Perfect. I'm like, that's a pretty freaking epic list.
Yeah.
That's
a great list.
awesome.
Yeah. Those are some of my favorites, and you could probably guess. Like I write fantasy adventure novels.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, but they're so important to Kelly and I as well. And so it resonates, and I think our listeners will resonate with them too.
And if you wanted to hit side books that I liked as a kid, I liked Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
Like that was like a book that wasn't fantasy, but that like it captured angst when I was an angsty freshman or sophomore in high school, and I was like, yeah, I get this, you know. And or like Watership Down was also a book that like it was so much better than I thought it would be for being about a bunch of rabbits. It's really quite an amazing, like kind of a unique book. And I don't know, there's a lot. But those are a couple, like if you want bonus books.
Awesome.
We'll take them all.
Perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate
And a little more
it.
off the beaten path, like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
quite as recommended as much anymore, maybe.
I was like, you have me at Ship of Rabbits? I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. I know. Watership Down is like. Have you guys done Watership Down?
No.
Have you read that one?
No.
So yeah, Watership Down is a book that's a miracle it got published, but there's a cartoon of it that's way too bloody to be a cartoon in some ways, but it is just a story about rabbits who go on an epic quest, and it's as if they're real rabbits, like it's not like humanoid rabbits or something, but it's if rabbits could think. And we're still rabbits. They go on this huge adventure, and it's really well done. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
I was like adding
On
it to
the
the
list.
list.
Yeah.
that's a good on the list if you haven't read it. It's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited for listeners to add those to their TBR if they haven't, or to just revel in their love of those fantasy sci-fi fiction.
Okay, that was
Perfect.
a great.
Thank you.
Cool.
Freddie. Thank
Thanks.
you so
Very
much,
good.
Brandon.
Awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to the LitJoy podcast. Please remember to rate and review us.
And like a good book, recommend us to your friends.